So today I want to talk about why doom scrolling is so easy. It comes easy, and I don't believe, because I want to beat a dead horse right now where they say, well, it's because you're just lazy because you don't have anything else to preoccupy your time with, which in a sense is true. It's a half truth though, but I believe it has a lot to do with living blissfully, living a simple life. Because now in today's society, it seems like almost every job demands everything of you. It's demanding everything that you are, whether or not it's a lowly job, wherever it is, or if it's a high status job that's looked up upon. And since your job demands everything of you, every waking hour, every waking moment, you have to keep your phone on at all times, or else you're gonna miss a call from your boss and he needs someone to cover a shift or a spot in whatever job you're working at. And if you don't, then you're slowly eroding that relationship with your job, which in turn kind of leaves you up for the option of whether or not you're gonna even have the job in the future. And when you don't have the certainty of a job, then that inherently makes it so you're restless. It's restlessness is what it is. And it's not so much that you can't have states where you're restless. Obviously when you're at a job, yeah, then you want to be awake, you want to be aware, you want to know your job duties, you want to be a good worker. But on the flip side, you also don't want the unstableness that comes with being the only worker that bears the burden of everyone's responsibilities. But you're also bearing the burden of the uncertainty of if you're going to have a job. And obviously, like with the job market right now, it's going to be really hard to get a job. And with all that being said, the result of that is inherently wanting to live blissfully. It's wanting to live on the exact opposite of the extreme. As we see within society, as we see within all different structures of society, we see this where people now want to live blissfully. They want to live on the opposite end of the extreme. Like the red pill is the direct result and polar opposite of the blue pill, which is, all men are bad, all, Democrats this. And I'm not saying one's right and one's not right, but there is some truth to it, and I think there is some understanding to be had. And yeah, I know there are some people that would say like, oh, well, you just have to get one of these jobs and then it's a lot less taxing and you can actually be who you want to be. You can be where you want to be, and you can be in that state where you aren't doom scrolling all the time and trying to find that blissful state of being. But those jobs are very far in between, and they're often very competitively. That's why you see a lot of people who don't want to work blue collar jobs. That's why you see an overwhelmingly amount of people trying to get into tech, trying to get into other white collar corporate jobs. It's because they're so tired and they don't want to live in this state of high alert, the state of stress. They want to be able to live blissfully in their life. So then, and in turn, what that means is that they want to focus on other aspects of their life. They don't want to just focus on their job that takes everything of them. And I think this is what has to do with a lot of the loneliness epidemic. And I know it's not just my generation that is trying to follow this blissful state of being by doom scrolling. I see a lot in older people. I see a lot in middle-aged people. But generally speaking, it is a lot of people in my generation. And I'm not harping on my generation, but I am trying to say there is truth to be had in that. And I think there's even better than that understanding to be had. So when they're trying to be in this blissful state of being, they're trying to gain that sort of energy back to them. So then they can focus on other aspects of their lives, especially relationships, especially getting out of this loneliness epidemic. That's something that I realized by not having a job for a while, is that I crave connection. I don't live in this restless state, and I don't live in this blissful state either, but I live in a state where I want to build something bigger than me. And I know a lot of people would say, oh, well, that's because you don't have a job, you don't have stuff figured out. Yeah, kind of, it's a little bit of truth to that. But however, overall right now, I have a lot more energy to pursue stuff that I'm genuinely interested in. I've actually approached girls for the first time in Lord only knows how long. And even though nothing prospered of it, it still felt good. You know, it still felt good, like I'm chasing something higher than this blissful state of being. And not only relationships, but also what you actually believe in. And it gives you this state of what you actually believe in, which is why I think a lot of what like the media is pushing and why they're pushing this sort of negative outlook on unemployment is because of that. It's because people can actually think for themselves. And now I'm not playing one extreme or the other where I'm advocating for everyone to quit their job, but I am saying it kind of like when you put it in that perspective and when you really try and understand it, it really does make sense. Is that they want you to be in this sort of restless state with your job. They want you to not pursue anything bigger than it. They don't want you to pursue relationships. They don't want you to have to think for yourself. They just want these mindless drones who don't have their real own autonomy. And they do that in various ways in social media about pushing politics, pushing certain narratives, whatever. But I think kind of wrapping this up, I think overall that's why everyone wants to live in this blissful state, is because they're trying to chase the polar opposite. And I can attest to this, where I was living in this restless state for a couple years, working some very, very stressful jobs, thinking like this is just what you had to do. I think the real key is to work not very hard at your current job, but work very hard at what you want to be outside of your job. Because outside your job, you have everything. You have everything. And I understand one end or the other where they'll say like, oh, well, who, lays the concrete for your roads, who builds the houses, who enforces the law. Completely understand that. But I think there's such thing as overproductivity, where you're constantly chasing more. And then you have your entire country who their job demands everything of them. And then they're in this constant, restless, tiring state where they don't have any energy to do anything outside of what they're doing right now. This is why you see a lot of boomers who do have the energy to argue for their groceries, like some missing eggs, some missing bread, because they're not in that restless state, at least not anymore. And that's why, I don't know about you guys, but the majority of boomers that I've worked with are very not the most productive workers. But keep in mind, I'm not playing one end or the other. I'm just going from my personal experience. But on the other end, I have had a ton of people my age who really are not the most productive workers. And matter of fact, it's like they're in this constant state of quiet quitting. And again, not playing one side or the other, not playing extremes, but I'm trying to find a middle ground in between it where there is more understanding. Right. I think that's all I got to talk about. All right. Thank you. God bless.